Yo guys, different type of video. Today I'm going to do my favorite game from every year of my life from when I was born, 1998, November the 9th. The first game that's on top of that list would be Altered Beast. I didn't own a Nintendo system, I owned a Mega Drive, aka the Sega Genesis, and games like Super Mario 3, were not available to me. If it was, I probably would have put that as number one, but because I owned a Genesis, it has to be Altered Beast for 1988. Moving on to 1989 now. I would have put Final Fight possibly, but I didn't own an arcade cabinet, only a Mega Drive and a little Game Boy. So, therefore, my favourite game of the year was either Tetris or Super Mario Land, which was like Super Mario 1 but for the Game Boy. I probably enjoyed that more than Tetris actually, so that was my favourite game for that year. Moving on to 1990, we have Alien Storm. We also have Super Mario World, I believe, came out in 1990, but I didn't own a SNES, so I couldn't put that as number one. So in the end, for 1990, I have to go with Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion. Really liked this game as a kid. I don't normally like platformer type games, but the music was so good. And yeah, it was just a great game. As we move through these, there may be a few years where there were so many good games that I've had to write them down because I can't remember them all on the fly on top of my head. So this is one of those years, 1991. This is very hard for me to choose because there's a lot of runnings for the top place, and those are Sonic 1, Street Fighter 2, Road Rash, Lemmings, Streets of Rage 1, and Golden Axe 2. Well, I'll just let this picture answer this question. That's me as a 3-year-old boy playing with my brother on a tiny television at my dad's house. I played Streets of Rage so much as a kid. It was probably my favorite game for a while. And I ended up 30 years later building a channel around Streets of Rage 4. The game had great music, 8 stages of action, 3 characters. There's nothing else to say really. It was a really fun game and was my favorite game in 1991. 1992 now, 4-year-old Billy Boy. This is another year that's hard to choose a winner, so I'm going to have to quickly check. Bart vs. the Juggernauts on the Game Boy. I really liked this game on the Game Boy, but there were so many better Genesis games that we're going to have to pick one of those. We've got Road Rash 2. Really loved those games. Well, 1 and 2, not really liking 3 very much. World of Illusion, which is another Mickey Mouse game that's great. Streets of Rage 2. I know it's a lot of people's favourite, but it isn't mine. It's a lot clunkier than 1 in movement and jab speed and hit stop and all that stuff. So, the number one game for me in 1992 is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This game was the most fun game on the entire Genesis, in my opinion. I don't think there's any other game I played more than Streets of Rage 1 and Sonic 2. I probably played Sonic 2 more than Streets of Rage 1 now that I think about it. Just the music, the speed, Dr. Robotnik, Wing Chase, the Sky Chase or whatever it's called, and the Wing Fortress, Death Egg, having to beat the game, beat 2 bosses with no rings if you die, and then finally beating it and having that epic credit scene. Yeah, this is probably my favorite game ever on the Genesis. Moving into 1993, another one with a lot of games. I'm sorry I have to keep looking up to find the game list that I've written on a notepad, but Jesus. Okay, 1993, Shinobi 3. I never owned it. I played it later, so it doesn't really count. Aladdin, I did own that. I played it a lot. Very good game. Mortal Kombat 2. Oh, that was amazing. That game was amazing. What else is there? NBA Jam. Liked that game a lot as well. Did I play it as much as Gunstar Heroes? No, I didn't. Gunstar Heroes, my mum took me to a game shop and she said I can have one game. And I looked around the shop all day. And then I found a cartridge with 4 games in one. And one of those games was Gunstar Hero. I think one of the others was actually Altered Beast, Flicky the Bird, and Alex Kidd in Enchanted Castle or whatever it was called. But yeah, Gunstar Heroes is an amazing game. I played it so much as a kid. Sometimes I'll go back and play it now and have just as much fun as I did back then. So that's my number one game for 1993. Oh man, I feel like as the years went on, more and more and more crazy games came out, which is only natural, right? More competition, more consoles. It's gonna happen. Okay, 1994. Little Big Adventure, was that really that old? Hold on. Give me a sec. Yeah, turns out it was 1994. Was it my favorite game though? Probably not. Now that I'm looking at the other games in the list, The Lion King. Yes. Yeah, that is one of the best games on the Genesis for sure. Is it my favorite though? Because Killer Instinct is on there as well. And I didn't have a SNES, so I didn't own it, but it was in arcades, and every time I went to an arcade and saw Killer Instinct, I was like, oh my god, there's that game, I need to play it. So I really enjoyed it. There's a train going past right now. But it wasn't my favorite game because Tekken 1 was also out, which was very good, and played it every day with my cousin. Sonic 3 was also out. I can't put that as number one because Sonic 2's better in my opinion. I didn't enjoy 3 as much. And we've got another little problem, and that's called Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim was my favourite game from that year. I put a lot of time into that game. The music, the sound effects, the comedy, the bonus stage where you're riding the rocket in space. Difficult game as well, so quite rewarding if you did complete it because it got quite tricky towards the end. Yeah, that's my favourite game, I've got to say, from 1994. 1995. Another year with a lot of good games. We're kind of in the PlayStation era now. I got given a PlayStation one Christmas by my mum and my stepdad, and the Genesis kind of took a back foot from there on, so now we're moving on to the PlayStation. There's a few games that were good though. Still on the Genesis. Comic Zone. Comic Zone. Mortal Kombat 3 was also on there. Tekken 2 though was out on the PlayStation now, which was a lot better than Tekken 1. Time Crisis was also out, and Road Rash. Really liked Road Rash because I was really into grunge music at the time, like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and bands like that. And the whole soundtrack is basically grunge, and I love Road Rash from the Mega Drive. And I felt like the PS1 game was just faster and crazier. So that could be my number one game. I'd probably put that as my number one, actually. It's close between that and Tekken 2. But I'm going to go with Road Rash on the PS1. Now we're going into 1996. Now we're moving into 1996. Now we're going into 1996. And it gets a little bit awkward here because we've got games like Resident Evil. Yes. Diablo. On the PC, that was my first PC game. I played so much on that. Back then, there was no broadband. You had to pay every second you were on the internet. It also blocked the house phone. If you're on the internet, no one could use the house phone. I played Diablo 1 quite a lot, so much that the monthly phone bill was £800, and then I got banned from playing it. Uh, so probably Diablo 1, but the trouble is, this is the same year that Resident Evil 1 came out, and Pokemon Red and Blue, which was the biggest Game Boy game ever. Everyone at school had it. I was in middle school. Everyone had Pokemon Red and Blue. People were battling, trading. The card game was huge. So it's kind of difficult to pick a best game. If it's just for the game, though, we've also got Duke 3D on the PC, which was...
It's time to abort your
wow,
whole
you guys
friggin'
know Duke
species.
Nukem. That's the best Duke Nukem game. It hasn't been beaten since. Tomb Raider 1. I really like Tomb Raider 1, but when you get lost in that game for like a whole Saturday, it starts to feel very slow and boring and tiring. So I'm going to have to pick Diablo on the PC. I put the most time into it after all. Sorry, Mum. Okay, 1997. Another year with a lot of insane games. So I'm going to have to look up at them because I can't remember them all. Grand Theft Auto, PlayStation 1. Ooh, when I first saw this game, it was at someone's house. And I went over there, I can't remember why. And he was like, yo, look at this game. And I just couldn't believe it. You can just rob anyone, get in any car, do missions, Uzi people, have the police chasing you, go so fast that the console couldn't keep up and it would have to slow down to compensate for the high speeds that you could go. Very good game. Is it number 1, though? Let's move on. Tekken 3. Oh, no, Grand Theft Auto loses. Tekken 3 is now winning, in my opinion, the best Tekken game. One of the best games on the PlayStation 1, 100%. That game was so good. The music, the unlocks, the characters, the stages, the special stages, even the beat-em-up mode. There was actually a side-scrolling beat-em-up mode, and you pick up the food and it would go, chicken. Maybe a shout out to Streets of Rage where you pick up the chicken to heal. Tekken 3 was so good. Dungeon Keeper. I am a huge fan of Dungeon Keeper 1. I don't like Dungeon Keeper 2. It was unfinished. It's buggy. It crashes. It's laggy. It's terrible. Dungeon Keeper 1, though, played it so much. Loved that game. That is up there for sure. God, this year is so hard. Tekken 3. Dungeon Keeper, Mortal Kombat 4, played it a lot. I can't put it as number 1 though because the game sucks. I liked it, but it sucks. Let's all agree on that. Tomb Raider 2, better than Tomb Raider 1. It can't be number 1 though. Abe's Odyssey, for me, Abe's Odyssey completely destroys Tomb Raider 2. Played Abe's Odyssey a lot. Really enjoyed the game. And normally, like I said, I don't like platformers and side-scrolling puzzle games, but that one I really enjoyed. Played it a lot, along with Abe's Exodus, which came out the next year, I believe. GoldenEye. GoldenEye on the N64. I don't think there was a better multiplayer experience than going to the youth club with someone's N64, 4 controllers, and playing the little quadra screen, rocket launcher, golden gun, Jaws, Odd Job, Donkey Kong head mode. GoldenEye was so good. And offline it was good because you had all the levels, the normal levels, and if you beat them, you unlock the secret agent, and if you beat them, you get cheats and codes and special modes, and then you get 007 agent, or whatever it is, 00 agent, which is the hardest mode, but it was... it just added more and more replayability. This is basically a game that had a speedrun mode in it, and if you speedran and did well, you'd actually get rewards. Yeah, GoldenEye is probably the best game. But oh wait, Final Fantasy VII came out that year, and that is my favourite game from 97. Played the game so much, hundreds of hours, unbelievable story. Gripping, like an actual role-playing game where you're like fully gripped in, invested in the characters, the love relationship, the villain is so good. Sephiroth is one of the best villains ever, maybe the best ever in an RPG. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about Final Fantasy VII. Cutscenes, just couldn't believe the cutscenes. The music. Oh, like you wouldn't even think you like that music until someone plays you the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. You go, yeah, I like that. I like that style of music. Yeah, it's one of my favorite games ever. Put a lot of time into the franchise, but Seven was my first step into that because FF3, 4, 5, 6, and all the other ones were not really that popular in my region. I'd never even heard of them. 7 came out, and that was it. This is Final Fantasy. So because of that, it is my number one game from 1997. 1998, possibly, in my opinion, the best year for video games ever. That's a bold statement, Bella. How can you say that? Well, we've got Abe's Exodus, Baldur's Gate, amazing game, Resident Evil 2, Crash Bandicoot 3, StarCraft, which is probably the game I've played the most hours of in my life. Ocarina of Time, Half-Life on the PC, and Metal Gear Solid. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. How can I even pick a game here? How can I even pick a top game? If it's based on time, it's StarCraft. But is it the best game? It's kind of janky when you think about it. Crash Bandicoot 3 was very fun. It was my favourite Crash Bandicoot. Ocarina of Time, I didn't own an N64, but I borrowed one. I know earlier I said I couldn't pick a console I didn't own, but I did share a console with a friend. He'd borrow the PlayStation, I'd borrow the N64. Back in the old days of game swapping and console sharing. But I didn't complete Ocarina. I only got probably like 20% through the game. It's so difficult. You would just be lost for weeks. Like, where do I go? Who am I supposed to go and see? What town? What cave? Where's the item? Am I supposed to bomb every wall and hope that I find something? It's very difficult, so I couldn't put it as number one. It's either Half-Life or Metal Gear Solid. I think Half-Life was really good. I was at a friend's house, staying there for the weekend, and he had a PC and he got Half-Life. Never heard of it. We didn't know anything about it. He puts the game on. I'm sat here. He's playing it, right? No headphones back then. He's playing it. We got speakers. So I'm watching him and he's playing Half-Life as Gordon, right? And he gets the hazard suit and then he goes and does the test. Once that test goes wrong, where they're like spinning that thing around and trying to do something with the alien planet, and it all starts crashing, exploding, and like you see shots of the alien world, we just looked at each other like, what the hell is this game? Oh my god, this is insane. We've never seen anything like this. The Half-Life one, yeah, it's an amazing game, but Metal Gear Solid is kind of like the Final Fantasy of search and destroy, right? Stealth. Metal Gear Solid 1 has got to be the number one game from that year for me, actually. The story is amazing. The codec, all the characters, Revolver Ocelot. That scene with Revolver Ocelot with the gun was so good that every kid in school was trying to do it. People bringing in toy guns like, the strongest handgun ever made, Snake. People were doing quotes every day. There's also a funny side story about it that they used to sell cheap versions of games called Platinum, and some of them didn't have like the proper artwork on the back of a case. You know, you look at the back of a case, you get 4 pictures, you get a little description. Some didn't have it. And one of the parts in the early game, you had to do a code to get to Meryl, I believe. You had to ring her, but the number was on the back of the CD case, the actual game case, and it told you that. The kernel would tell you that. So we'd be like, what? And we're like looking at the case, like, there's no pictures on my case because I've got the Platinum one. I got the jank market version. someone at school found out it's the back of the case, and they had the real version of the game, and then he brought it on a piece of paper for everyone at school, and then they went home and everyone could actually finally carry on with the game. That was the biggest like gatekeeper of the rest of the game, was that damn code password. Oh, I remember that code confusing all of us. It got to the point, this is how abstract it got. There's no code on the case. Somewhere in the hangar with the tanks around, you go up some stairs and there's a little room that's kind of like a library. In the room, there's like a display cabinet with a see-through bit of glass with like a disc in there or something. And there, you could look in first person with like binoculars or something. So we were even looking at the case in the library through the binoculars. Like, is there a code there? Does anyone see a code? Is it in this room? We had no idea. But anyway, yeah, it's such a fun action game. Story's amazing. The music's amazing. Replayability, because you could unlock like the stealth suit by killing Meryl. And you could unlock the unlimited ammo by saving her. And you could get the tuxedo as well. Cardboard boxes. Replaying the game in stealth was so funny. Just running through people's bodies and they're going, huh? What was that? And no one can ever see you. So yeah, that's probably my favorite game from 1998. Moving into 1999 now. This year was... So my favourite game from 99 was Final Fantasy VIII. I loved this game. I think it was an amazing sequel to 7. There's more cutscenes because it was on 4 discs, and they put a lot of cutscenes into the game. The music's kind of goofy if you just listen to the music, but in the context of the scenes, it fits really well. Had a lot of fun grinding this game, to be honest. Spent way too many hours getting all of the Guardian forces, doing all the side quests, replaying it over and over with a busted junction system. Definitely one of my favourite games of all time, not just that year. So there. Moving on to 2000 now, the Millennium. There's a few games here. I've got Vagrant Story, a very hard game that was from Squaresoft, the original Final Fantasy people. I really enjoyed it. It was different. It was very difficult, very complicated to understand. Like, everything you attacked, you did 1 damage, and like no one ever knew why. Now I know because of speedrunners and finding out the data of how everything works in the game. But that's in there. What else we got? Code Veronica X. Very good Resident Evil game. I don't think I like it as much as 1, 2, and 3, though. We've got Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Arm, the sequel to Baldur's Gate 1. Another very good game that I put a lot of hours into. Tony Hawk's 2. This game was so much better than Tony Hawk's 1. It may be one of the best PlayStation games ever. I should do a list of my top 10 PlayStation games. Someone actually will do that. But to be honest, 2000 for me comes down to two games, and it's very hard for me to choose which one. The two games is Diablo 2. I spent so much time, probably 5 years, continuously playing this game, along with StarCraft. So that's two Blizzard games that consumed my whole out of school life. I played Diablo 2 all the time with friends. I got a lot of people at my school into it. I told them all about it. Like 6, 7 guys got the game, and we all played after school online, which was cool. So yeah, that's probably the biggest online RPG I grinded ever. Excuse me. But the number one game for me in 2000, if it's not Diablo 2, it's got to be Final Fantasy 9. Another great Final Fantasy game. Completely different systems, completely different looking characters, completely different music, story. It was really good. I didn't find the end as interesting because Cloud was a puppet in Final Fantasy VII. Zidane's kind of a puppet in 9. I didn't feel as much impact at the end, but the journey was just as good as the others for me. So yeah, Final Fantasy IX is my favorite game from 2000. 2001 is maybe one of the most difficult years for me to pick a favorite game. Silent Hill 2, I recently watched a friend play this on stream and I loved every minute of it. I always heard Silent Hill 2 wasn't that good, like laggy and horrible, but so was Silent Hill 1. And I really liked Silent Hill 1 and didn't follow any of the others. Watching him play it though, I actually think Silent Hill 2's story is miles beyond the first game. But I never played it at the time, so I can't really include it. That's just an extra. Devil May Cry came out this year as well. Damn, that game was so cool. This was like early, we're in the like PlayStation 2 sort of era now. And that game looks so smooth. Like, I just couldn't believe the difference between the PlayStation 1 combat games and then moving on to the PlayStation 2 with games like Devil May Cry. And the setting of the game was really good because it was kind of like in the Resident Evil Mansion style. It was made by Capcom, and that is one of the top games for me from that year. It's not number one though. This year is difficult. Tony Hawk's 3. This was one of the first 2 games I owned on the PlayStation 2. The other game, I got a PlayStation 2 for Christmas from Mum and Stepdad again, and I was just playing it all Christmas. I couldn't believe how much fun this console was. So yeah, Tony Hawk's 3 I had on it, and Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 2. I'd never completed that game though. I just couldn't work out where to go somewhere. But I put a lot of time into Tony Hawk's 3. But still, these are not the top game for me that year. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out. Really love that game. A bit annoyed that I wasn't playing Snake, kind of like everyone probably was, but it was very fun. Better graphics, smoother FPS. Story followed on nicely. The twist at the end when the Colonel's sort of revealing he's an AI and he's freaking out and he's telling you like you need to stop playing games so much, and I'm a little kid like what's going on here? And then I think, is it Naomi says, you've played this game for 48 hours, don't you think you need to turn off the console? And I, as a kid, I was like, oh my god, it was like some sort of The Ring or something, like a horror thing coming out of the TV. That one got me good. And the Psycho Mantis in the first game when he read out all the memory card saves you had. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot 3, young Bella. Okay, turn off. Is it the best game, though? This is tricky. I don't think it is, because the same year, Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. And when that came out, that game was so big. It was amazing. It was the first 3D Grand Theft Auto. And the only other games like it was Driver 2, but I think that was still on the PS1. That was the first game I think you could like just get into people's cars. But Grand Theft Auto 3 brought it to another level. It's hard to vote against that, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to, because in 2001, my favorite game was Final Fantasy X. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I know a lot of people, both sides of the fence. They either love it or hate it or just don't care. But for me, Final Fantasy X, the graphics shifting, the cutscenes being improved, the gameplay speed improved, the voice dialogue, the whole journey. I was gripped from the second I started the game until the second the game ended. Loved the whole journey. Seymour as a villain was great. The Jet Braska Auron past storyline and slowly figuring out what happened to them while figuring out what's going on with Tidus and Yuna or Tidus. Just everything in that game. Even the secrets were fun to grind and not too annoying. Actually, they were annoying. But either way, great music as well in that game. I love the Blitzball stuff and the Luca music. So that's my favorite game from 2001. That was a difficult one. But yeah, there it is. Fast forward in a year to 2002. Now games become a lot easier for me to rate number one of the year. Before this, from like 1995 to 2001, it was very difficult to pick my favorite game. There were so many bangers, but now it becomes quite a bit easier. 2002, there was two games I really liked. GTA Vice City, which was just a massive improvement on GTA 3. I thought GTA 3 was amazing. And then I played Vice City. Oh, I can punch cars now and bits of the car fall off. And the story and they just improved on. They didn't change too much. They knew they had like a godlike game, and they just kind of improved everything that was already great and just made it even better. So it's either that game or, unfortunately, it isn't that game because it's, for me, Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos. After StarCraft, playing that a lot, this was the next RTS I really put time into. And I think Warcraft 3 was amazing. 4 races all have their own theme tune. There was a light mechanic at nighttime. It would go nighttime and at 6 p.m. in the game, I think. And then you could use the shop to buy items. Lots of strategies, massive strategies. Every map was like unique and different. Just because of how the game was made, that you have to kill neutral creeps and they drop certain items and the guy could steal the item. And I played so much. 2v2 was very fun as well. 4v4 was kind of difficult because of my PC limitations. This is the point where you needed to get good graphics cards, otherwise you were going to lag in games. Even in Diablo 2 I had that problem. I couldn't teleport at max speed because of my PC, even though I had the gear for it. And same with Warcraft 3, it didn't perform perfectly, but I had a friend up the road who had a nice PC and I used to play on that all the time and it just felt so smooth and good. So that's my favorite game for 2002. 2003 is pretty easy for me. It's Max Payne 2. Loved that game. Played it so much. The Matrix slow motion bullet dodging. I loved the story. The gloominess of the Max Payne lore of just all the worst things in the world that could happen to this guy does happen and you've got to go through it. I love the anime art style of sort of Sin City black and white comic book with some color. The voice acting's amazing, the music's amazing, the characters are amazing. Not enough good things to say about Max Payne 2. Very good game. Moving into 2004 now. This one's tricky, but I know what it is. It's World of Warcraft. A big sequel to Warcraft 3. They used the Warcraft lore to create an online multiplayer MMO, whatever. The best MMO ever made, even to this day. I had the game, PC wasn't good enough, and at that point, PCs had to be beyond the Warcraft 3 PCs. You had like Diablo PCs, then you needed a better one for Diablo 2, then you needed a better one for Warcraft 3, now you need another graphics card for World of Warcraft. I bought one, knew nothing about computers, had to saw part of the computer apart to fit the graphics card on the motherboard. The case was too small. Every 5 minutes, the PC would overheat and turn off. I made it to Westfall, which is like a level 10 zone, but it took me like a week of just turning the computer on every time it turned off. So I really got to play this game at different friends' houses who had better computers. But yeah, it was the best game of the year for me. And to be honest, the best MMO of all time to this day. I think even if it ended at Wrath of the Lich King, I don't think it's been beaten for that online experience. And it's what puts me off of most MMOs now. I can't ever get that experience that World of Warcraft gave me. If I play Lost Ark, within 10 minutes, I was bored of it within the first day, to be honest. What other MMOs were there? Final Fantasy 14, I look at it and I just think, no. Guild Wars, no. It's just not the World of Warcraft feeling that I got. So, unfortunately, for me, MMOs are kind of dead now. It started with WoW and ended with WoW. That's at least from my experience. So 2004, definitely World of Warcraft. Next on the list is 2005. My favourite game of that year was Fight Night Round 2 on the Xbox. It was a boxing game that I spent a lot of time playing for some reason. There wasn't that many good boxing games in history, I feel like, and this one actually felt really fun to play, so that was my favourite game from that year. 2006, another MMO. I said I wouldn't like any other MMO again, but this one I did. And the only reason was because my PC could just run it. It was Neverwinter Nights, 2006. I had a lot of fun playing this online. Kind of a bit of a crazy MMO. Like, you would be leveling and you're like level 3 or 4, and then you like explore a bit where you're not meant to be, and you look up and there's a level 80 dragon above you that just like one-shots you, and people could kill you in the real world. And every time you went to a different map, it would like take 5 seconds to load, and the person would be chasing you. So they would load in, and then you would go back to the other zone, and they would chase you back through the loading zone, and you were just constantly like running away from everyone online because it was just warfare. Like, everyone was killing everyone. It was frustrating, but it was a fun game, and it was more isometric style, like Diablo 2, but an MMO. I definitely had a lot of fun on it. It was funny. It was very difficult. I just didn't understand anything back then. I sucked at it, but I had a lot of fun playing it. So that was my favourite game that year. 2007. This year, my favourite game was Crackdown. This is a game where you were like a space marine and you ran around the city attacking people, collecting agility power-ups. The more you killed people with your hands, the more strength you got, and the more strength you got, the more damage you did. But also you could pick up like objects. The stronger you got, the bigger the object, and eventually you could literally pick up like a whole container, sprint and jump through the air and throw it at someone 200 meters away. It was like a superhero type game. With different mafia bosses dotted around the map, and you had to bit of a free reign explore. Some of the main bosses, you didn't know where they were, and you would just sort of drive around, and then your radar would go, oh, one of the kingpins is here on that boat, and then you'd sort of jump over a fence and try and find them. Very fun action game. Had a lot of fun playing that. Replayed it quite a few times as well. Tried to speedrun it at one point when I like didn't really know how to speedrun anything. That didn't go very well. And then I saw a video of someone just completely destroying it, and I was like, yeah, that was fun to watch, but no, I'm not going to speedrun that game. It was a very fun game though, and definitely my favourite game for that year. 2007, we've got Wrath of the Lich King, the second expansion for World of Warcraft. Played this a lot. Don't know if it was my favorite game though, because at that point I'd actually grown bored of World of Warcraft quite a bit and MMOs in general. So I didn't really. I was playing it a lot at a friend's house. Again, I still didn't have a PC that could run it. But I wasn't like super blown away anymore by it. So that's not my favorite game of the year, but it should be mentioned. It was good. Grand Theft Auto 4 came out. I never owned this, so I can't put it there. It was a good game, a big step up from the PS2 GTAs, obviously. I think in this one, if you crashed a car at full speed, you'd fly out the windscreen. And I think you could jump out a helicopter and it would show the guy flying to the ground screaming like, "Ah!" And then you'd get to see him hit the floor, bounce, you're dead, slow motion, start again in red or whatever it was. I had fun playing it around a friend's house. Maybe it would have been number one of that year, but I never owned it, so I couldn't put it there. I've never gone back to it anyway. But the number one game for me of 2008 was Street Fighter 4. Indestructible. Seeing Street Fighter 4 next gen, into the next console on the 360, I couldn't believe it, man. Like, I loved it. As soon as I saw it, I was just blown away. Like, the next level of Street Fighter is here. And at the time, this should be mentioned, the Xbox 360 had a thing called Xbox Live that you had to pay monthly to use. But if you had it, you could play like all these games online. There was arcade games. Every game you owned that could be multiplayer, you could play it online. And Street Fighter 4 was perfect to play online, and a very fun game. And also a very high skill cap on combos. Very difficult, to the point where you'd have to like rewire your stick, do soldiering because there was a plink button. I'm not going to go into that. And you had to move it to be able to do certain combos easier. So many hours in Street Fighter 4. Is still one of my favorite fighting games of all time. Definitely my favorite game in 2008. 2009, very easy this one. League of Legends. The biggest game for almost 10 years, if you think about it. 2009 it came out. It dominated everything until Fortnite existed. So that's a pretty long stretch of domination. I know it came from Warcraft 3 of the Dota map made by IceFrog, but League of Legends was like the fully polished Dota. Dota 2 was a bit clunky, and League of Legends was working to make that next MOBA that's just, very clean everywhere. It became popular very quickly. Lots of heroes you could play. Gameplay was fun. You had your 3 spells and your ultimate, just like every MOBA, but you could hold shift and insta-cast it instead of like Q, left click, Q, or whatever. So yeah, a lot of skill cap in that game as well, and many wasted thousands of hours on it, but was my favorite game from 2009. Moving into 2010 now, another great game, kind of. I like, it has to be this game. It's definitely this game, but there's some history with it, and it really annoyed me. So I'm gonna just go into that now. I said earlier, StarCraft was one of my favorite games. I put so many hours into StarCraft 1. I watched everything before Twitch TV, before Justin TV. There was Africa and Owned, or whatever it was called, another streaming site. I think it was Owned. And there was another one for like Asian pro matches for Warcraft 3 and StarCraft. Watching it all the time, following the Pro League. Didn't speak Korean or anything like that. Just followed all the pro gamers. And 2010, StarCraft 2 comes out. But before that, it was mentioned it was coming out like a year and a half before, which killed Brood War. Brood War was very popular, and soon as StarCraft 2 was mentioned and videos come out, Brood War just went, "Meh, it's only in Korea now." And a bit of the USA. You had people like In Control and Idra and Artosis, Tasteless, Day9, those sort of guys who are all in the scene, but most of them lived in Korea. And yeah, basically the announcement of StarCraft 2 killed Brood War. And that annoyed me, one, because the game I loved was killed just by an announcement. And two, I knew my PC wouldn't run it. I was watching it and thinking, wow, this is like Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, and Diablo 2 to Warcraft 3, Warcraft 3 to WoW, WoW to StarCraft 2, like new PC, new card, new PC, new card. And I just knew I wouldn't be able to play it. I got it, I installed it, and I was like so hopeful to play it. And then I loaded the game and it would get to the loading screen and it just couldn't load it. It could not animate that spaceship in the background that was going past, and that was the end. Had to play it at a friend's house who luckily had a good PC. Played it quite a bit, did enjoy it. It's definitely my favourite game of the year, but I do have some bad taste in the mouth because it killed my actual favourite game from them. But yeah, we have to pick one, and it's StarCraft 2. What was my favourite game in 2011? Gravity Squeeze! Yes, it was Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Really liked the vanilla game. Remember seeing trailers for it and being like, yo, they're doing tag combos. See Vipers in the game? Yeah, oh. And the vanilla was kind of stupid, right? Wesker was broken. Sentinel was on every team because he could just 100% anyone, and his assists were godlike. And level with X Factor, he was insane as well. And it kind of got a bit stale, the vanilla of what characters to play. And then Ultimate came out and added more characters, did some balancing, and it was just more crisp movement, fluid. Enjoyed watching a lot of the American tournaments, the Evos, the weeklies, just seeing like every week a new player or team doing crazy stuff, breaking the game. Some combos were like literally breaking the game. You would tag someone and it wouldn't tag them. Like the game didn't even know what to do anymore. That's how crazy the combos were in that game. Had a lot of fun of it. Unfortunately, couldn't play it online. Marvel's not that popular over here. It's more of a USA thing. So online was terrible. You just have to play people from America all the time, and you couldn't even do like a 1-2-3 launch air combo super. It's too much lag. You couldn't even do like the most basic combo. But playing it offline and trying to learn combos and stuff and playing with a few friends, it was fun. So it's definitely my game of the year for 2011. 2012. We're back on the PC, guys. And now, Billa actually, after, 18 years of PC gaming, now has a PC that can actually run games optimally. So, I spammed a lot of PC games. I was over the moon. I was over the moon when I finally bought a PC for myself and it could run the modern games. So this year it was Sleeping Dogs, kind of like a GTA game, a bit more limited in like robbing people and driving helicopters and stuff. You couldn't really do that. It was mostly vehicles. But it was a kung fu game, kind of like Shenmue. I can't believe I didn't put Shenmue on the list. Shenmue 2 I had on the Xbox, the original Xbox, but I don't know what year it was, and it was probably beaten by something else. Anyway, let's not get into that. It's a bit like Shenmue, a sort of kung fu game, GTA, run around doing missions. The game was super fun. There were so many moves in it. You could go and change your outfit, and depending on what outfit you got, would change your whole move list. It's like, oh, I'll get the Bruce Lee outfit. Now you're Bruce Lee. Oh, I'll get the thug outfit. Now you're a thug doing wrestling moves and takedowns. And I'll get the submission guy outfit, the karate guy. There was so much content to buy in game. Like nowadays, you want any content, you got to get the bank card out, right? But this was so much content in the game itself that made you keep playing and playing and playing and wanting to unlock everything. And the story was pretty cool too, just like basic mafia family versus mafia family, betrayals, a wedding type thing. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing Sleeping Dogs, and you could grab anyone and they would start flailing. You'd like grab them and they go, ooh, and you. I remember once I grabbed some old lady, found the biggest set of stairs, hoisted her ass down the whole set. She bounced off a railing at the bottom, flipped in the air off a boat into the ocean. And yeah, those are the sort of things that make games like Grand Theft Auto and Sleeping Dogs very fun to play. So that's my game of the year for 2012. 2013, pretty simple, Grand Theft Auto 5. I have it on PC. I haven't played it on PC, but I also have it on the boys' PlayStation 4 upstairs, and we played it quite a bit together. Had a lot of laughs on that one. Three characters in the game, right? One of them's really funny. I forget his name, the sort of bold guy who's very rude. And a bit different from the other Grand Theft Autos. You're not just one person going from dot to dot to dot mission. It's split into 3 different stories, and you get to play each character's story, and each person's in a different area on the map. So it's kind of like a teleport thing. Look, very crisp, very, very good looking game. GTA 5, to be expected. Every improvement on console PC on GTA has always looked fantastic in my opinion. So yeah, pretty easy first place there. On to 2014 now. I couldn't find a single game that I liked or even played from that year, except for one. I don't want to even put it in the list because I think it's just trash, and that's Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. I think Diablo 3 is way worse than Diablo 2 and 1. I don't have much hope for Diablo 4 because of Blizzard's track history of the last, 8 years of just doing awful games. But I had to pick one for the list, so it would have to be Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. 2015, a pretty easy one for me. Pillars of Eternity. It's kind of like a modern Baldur's Gate type game. I had a lot of fun playing this game. It's more complex than Baldur's Gate with the mechanics, but it's not too hard if you just take some time reading what everything does. The game does have some issues with FPS dropping, and it's a real shame because there's so much going on in combat. You kind of don't want it lagging, but it does. The scenery's amazing though. I love the running around in the woods and listening to the birds and the music playing. It's really fun to play through. So yeah, that's my game of the year. On to 2016. This game I really enjoy actually. Some people don't like it, some like it. It's Street Fighter 5. Almost said 6 then. 2016 Street Fighter 5. Wasn't very good at this game at the beginning. I kind of played it a bit and then stopped, and then they released Gil, and then I went back to the game and played it for a few months and stopped. I never played it that much, like Street Fighter 4 I played so much, but 5 I didn't play that much, but I definitely had fun playing the game. Nowadays though, you have to buy characters, which is kind of annoying. Like a fighting game, you should just be able to unlock everyone, but nowadays you have to buy half the cast. I don't understand why. You've already bought the game, now you have to buy the characters. Anyway, it's a bit silly, but that's my favourite game from 2016. On to 2017, a game I really enjoyed this year was Divinity Original Sin 2. This game's very pretty. You could just play it over and over again with different classes just because it's so pretty and the music's amazing and it's so fun to play. I could go on about this game in a completely different video, and I might do that somewhen, but I've played this game a hell of a lot and enjoyed it every single time I've played it. 2018, this is going to sound a bit funny, but my favorite game was 2 Point Hospital. It was I think it was from Sega. Might be wrong there, but it's basically a modern theme hospital with all like modernized controls and graphics and music, but it just plays really well. I enjoy it a lot, and it doesn't. The thing it's lacking, unfortunately, is that it doesn't really have as much humor as the classic game. Because the classic game back then, like you could pop someone's head, like literally blow up someone's head, and it would pop, and they would be cured from bloaty head. But those sort of funny jokes in the game, they're still there, but they're just more modern humor, right? More PC, I guess. But it was definitely a fun game to play through, and that's my game of the year, 2018. 2019. I had to go with Apex Legends for this one. I had a lot of fun playing this game with some real life friends on Discord. It's just another battle royale game, but quite fast movement and tech. Definitely a laugh with mates. Unfortunately, you can't play the game without with Windows Nightlight, which I need because bright lights hurt my eyes, and that game's full of energy guns that are very bright. And the game itself, not having Nightlight after using Nightlight for so long is so bad. I cannot look at the monitor without it. And the only way to do that in Apex is windowed full screen, but then the game drops FPS and it's not as nice to play anyway. But the game itself was very fun. Lots of characters, abilities, guns, a few maps that would rotate every week or two. Christmas game mode was always fun. A big, like, massive war for this train, very small map. Like a deathmatch mode. That was very fun. And so, yeah, pretty easy to say that was my favorite game, 2019. 2020. We all know what this is. It's Streets of Rage 4. No other game could compare to the amount of fun I had in this game. I didn't even know the game was coming out when it was out. It was there, and suddenly I was like, oh my god, there's a new Streets of Rage, even though the trailer was like 2 years before, I think. As soon as I got the game, didn't stop playing it, started streaming the game constantly, pretty much for 2 years. And yeah, I don't think I've had more hours of content out of a game since the Final Fantasy days back in the 90s and early 2000s. One of my favorite games of all time. In my top 5. I will do a top game list somewhere. I don't know what that's gonna be yet, but it's definitely in there. So yeah, that's my favorite game from 2020, hands down, easily. I don't even need to look up other games from that year. That's how much I enjoy playing it. 2021, there's 2 games. One is Forgive Me Father, which I played recently. It's kind of like a Doom 2 type game, but modern, fast-paced. You can go as fast as your skill lets you. Just run, shoot everything. Lots of guns and items and spells. There's a few spells in the game. If you need quick action, you just log on and play Forgive Me Father, and you've got it. It's not Game of the Year for me, though. Game of the Year for me would be The Ascent. I'm still playing through it. It's like a cyberpunk game, and like a proper cyberpunk game. Like you really feel like you're in that society. There's a whole world lore and different races and factions and names of locations and a corporation that's corrupt and a cool storyline. The action's brilliant and the music's amazing. The graphics are incredible. I think it's the game company's first game, and to look like that, I'm sure there's going to be much more amazing content to come from them, so let's look forward to it. So yeah, The Ascent is my favorite game from 2021. And 2022, if you stuck through the video, thank you for getting here. This is going to be the end of gaming. No, I'm just kidding. But the end of my list. And I had a look round. There may be a different game, but I couldn't find one. Best game of the year for me was Multiverses. And to be honest, it wasn't even that good. I've uninstalled it. I couldn't find anything else from this year. Maybe I'll go and look again, but I played it quite a bit, played with some friends, had some good times online with it. But it's just another 1v1 competitive game with not much variance in it. There's a few maps that you just keep recycling, same fights over and over again, same combos. Yeah, it's just not that fun, but I have to pick a game for this year, and that's the one I've probably played the most from this year. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. It's a bit of a long one. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to do some different content for once. I'm going to be doing more videos like this, shorter ones though, like top 10s. But I wanted to give everyone a history of my gaming life as accurately as possible, while hopefully making some people happy seeing some of their favorite games on the list. Thanks for watching this. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Thanks for watching. See you next time.